Pleased now to be joined by Michael Chiesa up against Vicente Luque at UFC 265. Great to see you, Mr. Chiesa. How's it going, man? This one's massive. Vicente Luque, game as they come. I've heard you talk about him being your most dangerous opponent ever. I mean, what makes you say that about him?
Just, his finishing abilities. He's known to be a finisher. And that's what makes him so dangerous. And it's not that he's just good at finishing one way. He's not a one-trick pony. He can knock you out. He can submit you. He's got a lot of power. So the threat of danger, that type of threat from a fighter heightens my senses, and I think it'll make me perform better.
I was interested that he thinks if he doesn't knock you out, this is going to be fight of the night. Do you agree with that? What is your kind of assessment of that?
Yeah, if he can't knock me out, he definitely has the potential to be fight of the night. I mean, he's got a ton of he's got a ton of performance bonuses. I got 5 of them myself. So it's hard to predict how this fight's going to go. There's a lot of things in my game that I haven't really shown in my fights. And this might be the fight where they come out. It just depends on how the flow of the fight goes and what takes place. But, it's a tough fight nonetheless. And, it would be, it's going to be a very fun competitive fight. And I'm excited to see how everything plays out.
So you're rocking the Camp Chiesa hoodie there. How's the merchandise game going?
I don't actually sell any of my merchandise. This is just something that, a lot of people help me with these fights, a lot of teammates, a lot of coaches and stuff. And it's just, I just make us gear for fight week and, give the guys that have kind of helped me out through camp, just kind of some gear just to kind of stoke them out, just a little small token of my appreciation. But, the Camp Chiesa brand is something that me and this company down here, the Great Pacific Northwest, a lot of stuff on the West Coast. And our plan is with this Camp Chiesa stuff is I want to come up with a foundation where when we start to put out a product line, all of the profits are going to go to proceeds that are going to send kids to some type of camps. So for me, we've talked about, I'm very passionate about skateboarding and snowboarding, and have a camp in the summer in Oregon where Oregon has the abilities during the summer to still do skiing and snowboarding in Mount Hood. And then they have a skateboard camp at that same place as well. So my plan is when we want to actually pull the trigger on this stuff, we get the time to sit down and do it, is to actually put out a line of Camp Chiesa gear. And then, like I said, use all those profits to send kids to camps, namely this particular one, because I want to, I know what it's like to be a kid and be passionate about something like skateboarding and snowboarding. There's not a lot of avenues to go for camps. So it's something that we're looking at down the line, but right now I got to focus on Vicente Luque.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's brilliant, man. You train at Syndicate in Vegas. I guess there's been lots of important moments in your career, moving to welterweight again, training in Las Vegas. How significant is that for you in just making your life as a fighter easier, being in the fight capital of the world?
I camp as good at home. I have great coaches at home. I have good training partners, but I needed big bodies this camp. And, it was just important for me to go to Las Vegas and get those looks and get those big bodies. And, Juliana Pena was supposed to be fighting on this card, and she lives in Chicago. We've been teammates for 13 years. And so my coach, he spent a lot of his time down in Chicago because he knows I'm in good hands when I go down to Las Vegas. I'm with John Wood and the guys at Syndicate, as well as everybody at the UFC Performance Institute. So it was a great camp. I mean, it was my first camp down in Las Vegas without having that big weight cut to 155 pounds. So I was able to be really productive, put in a lot of good work. And I feel like this is the best version of myself I've came into the octagon with yet.
That's exciting. Looking forward to seeing it. The Magny fight felt significant. Did it feel significant to you that you seem to be on a lot of momentum right now, and that seemed to give you that added boost forward?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me was getting my first main event. I think that, I had a main event against Kevin Lee. It didn't go according to plan. You can't really plan how things are going to go in a fight. It's one of the most uncontrollable environments you can possibly immerse yourself in. But, getting a second crack at a main event and having to do it on short notice, it's the way I train, I train really hard. But, when you got a guy like Neil Magny, who's a known cardio machine, a guy that just has an endless gas tank, and then you get the short notice call like, hey, got to go the 2 extra rounds. And to be able to pull through with the win, having gone the distance, gone a full 25 minutes, something I look back on with a lot of pride, and I could be able to say, I won a UFC main event on ESPN. It's a big deal for me. So definitely a milestone in my career for sure.
Being a top 5 guy now, you were talked about to be fighting Usman. Does it feel like something special is awaiting you right now with this fight and what's to come after it?
For me, honestly, man, before the Luque fight got booked, I was looking ahead. I'm looking at the champ. There was definitely some talks about us potentially fighting before the Luque fight. But once the fight got signed with Vicente, I brushed all that stuff to the wayside, man. I'm not really thinking much about like what comes after this fight. Because Vicente is the type of guy where if I start looking past him and what's next, something's going to slip through the cracks. And that could end up with me laying on the cameras counting ceiling lights. And that's not what I want. So it's just important for me to stay focused, not worry about what comes next. The only thing that comes next for me is August 7th, UFC 265, Toyota Center. That's it. Like, I'm not looking at what comes thereafter. So I think it's just important for me to stay focused on that.
Who do you think is the most underrated guy in the division right now?
Oh, man, that's a really good question. Most underrated guy at 170 pounds. Man, I think Sean Brady's on the rise. He's an undefeated guy, CFFC champ, and anybody that's won the title for CFFC has gone on to the UFC and done great things. He trains alongside my boy Paul Felder, and we all know how tough Paul is. And Sean Brady comes in with an undefeated record, and he's got a very well-rounded skill set. So I think he's a guy. We'll see what happens with Kevin Lee, but I think he's a guy. He gets past Kevin, he's going to be knocking on the door of the top 10. Maybe getting beyond that. So I think he's one of the, but I'd say he's like one of the best upcoming guys at 170 pounds right now. Just a super dangerous, well-rounded guy for sure.
It's great to ask you these kind of questions because you are absolute top-notch analyst. Who do you think is the GOAT analyst in the UFC right now? Who's your favorite TV guy?
Favorite guy in terms of, I haven't gotten a chance to do commentary yet. But if I was to rate guys that do the analyst stuff, things on the desk, I got to say, I really like Anthony Smith. I think Anthony Smith he's got there's layers to his thoughts and his analysis. And sometimes good analysis is beyond the X's and O's of the sport. Sometimes it's about things that are rooted within a fighter's mind and things of that sort. And I think Anthony can really speak to working with Anthony because I enjoy listening to his analysis, and I also feel like I absorb knowledge from him as well.
I'm interested to see, people like Angela Hill has been around a long time. She's having a lot of rematches right now. You've been around a similar amount of time to Luque. You've only got 4 less losses on your record. If you could get any of those back, which one would it be? I noticed Masvidal, he's below you in the rankings now, but who would you pick and why?
It's funny you say that. I don't really dwell on my losses too much, to be completely honest with you, because when you lose a fight, that's when you learn a lesson. You learn from your losses, and that's really tough because it's not like, as much as we want to grow and evolve as martial artists, and we all accept the fact and know that the losses are where you learn. It's not that we don't want to learn much, it's just we don't want to lose. So every loss happened for a reason, and there's a reason why it happened, and I grew from that. So I don't really dwell on them. There's none of them that I really have an itch to get back. Even the fight with Kevin Lee, it's like, there was terrible referee intervention, but hey, guess what? I shouldn't have gave up my back and let him take that position. That's my fault. There's wins I would like to have back. It's because I feel like I could have done better. So, like if there's one fight I could have back, I would love to have back the Diego Sanchez fight, because I feel like gave him a little too much respect, and I didn't pursue the finish as much. And I think that would have been a big feather in my cap if I could have went out there and submitted him.
Wow, that's interesting. We touched briefly on the champ. I'm just interested to know, because I think it'll be a great matchup. It'll be really interesting. Do you think he's on his way to becoming like the greatest welterweight? Because he's building quite a legacy.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that he's there. I mean, he really is. He's just especially he's really he's super dominant. I'm pretty sure he's like 20-1 altogether. His record, he only has one loss, undefeated in the UFC. And then it's just this recent streak he's been on. When I do my comparison to him and George St. Pierre, you saw George in the early stages of his title reign really putting guys away. And then towards the end, not that he was fighting safe, he's just very tactical. We saw a lot of decisions, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, you got to win by any means necessary. And Kamaru is like the opposite, where in the beginning of his title reign, just kind of, you know, going the full distance, just kind of neutralizing guys for 5 rounds. And then, like, look at his last 2 fights. I mean, he just buzzed through these guys. And, you know, his last 3 fights, you know, the Colby fight, the Burns fight, and the Masvidal fight, you know, he really just like huge finishes. So I think that that's one big reason why he's really, I would put him ahead of George. I think George did what he did in that era is what made it so special. But I think that when I get down to breaking both guys down, just on opposite sides of the chart, I feel like Usman, I feel like he's well on his way there if he hasn't done it already, cemented himself as the best welterweight of all time.
You must have weighed it up in your mind. Does the competitor in you kind of relish that challenge?
I mean, yeah, you want to fight the best guys. That's from day one, from the time I won the Ultimate Fighter, my first press conference I ever did after I won Tough. That's what I said. I want to fight the best guys. I'm not here. There's a million other things I could do in life to make as much, if not more money than what I'm doing now. You know, I have such a competitive fire in me, and I want to test myself against the best guys. And I feel very blessed that I've built myself up and worked myself into this position now where I get to fight guys like Vicente Luque, you know, a guy that's, you know, in my opinion, I feel like we're both tied for the 5 spot. We've been bouncing back and forth between 5 and 6 to be able to fight a guy of that caliber. Like, this is what I'm here for. It makes me nervous as hell, but I know that deep down in my heart, it's what I want. And it's truly a blessing. So that's, you know, when I look at fighting guys like Kamaru Usman and things of that sort, it's about the challenge, you know, just to say I did it. And I think that's kind of what drives me. That's where my competitive spirit comes from. It's just wanting to go against the best, see how far I can take this thing.
What a cool life, man. What an amazing position to be in. Michael Chiesa, you're the man. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.